Hello, my name is Maurice Washington. I want to welcome everybody to another episode of Executive Talk. Those that are watching live and those that are listening later on our podcast, thank you so much for joining us today. In today's show, we're going to talk about the mental approach to market volatility. As you know, when it comes to market conditions, you can never really figure out where the marketplace is. And for a lot of people, it makes a lot of people nervous and just makes people scared in order to move forward in it. And the biggest question is what to do. With me today, I have Kerri Farren with Summit Global Private Wealth with me to talk to us a little bit further about what decisions that we can make to make it easier for us to get into the marketplace and feel more comfortable about executing and seeing how things change. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring Kerri to the stage. How you doing today, Kerri?
I'm doing really well because it's not 20 degrees outside anymore like it was last
You
week.
didn't like the cold weather?
No, I didn't. This is better, 60 degrees. So, how about yourself?
No, I can understand. I'm definitely spoiled too. This weather has been fantastic now, but I'm glad it's passed. So the year so far, I want to ask you that because I know that's uh, bigger on the agenda. We've seen last year, we've gone through a lot of changes. This year, we're coming into a lot of new changes. And so, I mean, ultimately, as the years go on, more volatility is, I don't know, presented to us, as people. How have you seen this affect all these changes affect people? Has this been affecting people in more of a positive way, or you seen it as more of a negative?
I see it 50-50. It's a good question, good way to look at this because some people, again, I don't want to get into politics and everything, but some people are really happy with what's been going on now, and some people are really scared.
Sure.
So, with the fluctuation in the market right now, too, all the decisions that are being made, there are people that are really on the positive side about this and doing well and looking good into the future, and then some others are scared half to death, and
Right.
because they don't know what's going to happen. So this year, it's only been 2 months, and this year has already been a really up and down kind of year so far with my clients and their thoughts on things.
That's fair. That's fair. And that leads me into this right here, feelings and emotions, because the key to this conversation is mental approach to market volatility. And whenever you see volatility, when it's associated with money, you're going to see a lot of feelings and emotions that come with it. What type of feelings and emotions do you see consistently when it comes to people that are participating in the market, or when you're talking to a person about getting into the market? What type of feelings and emotions do they express to you?
There are many different emotions depending on also where they stand with, the government, all that in the market, but also with their different ages, where they've come from, and what they're seeing in the future. And it's just some basic information on the different kind of people we'll be talking about through this are the different generations of our people. We have the baby boomers, which were out of the house really early at 18, sometimes even earlier, working really hard, looking into the future. They had things like pensions, good 401ks, things like that to grow with. So their look in the future is a lot different than what each one went down. Gen X looks at it different. We have less retirement plans. A lot of us don't have the pensions or that anymore. So we're looking at, okay, we're a little bit of more fear because we have to do our own savings, and how are we going to do it? I don't understand it. I'm afraid to get in the market. This kind of stuff is kind of scaring me, but I'm seeing that we're still young enough to look into the future and say, hey, let's learn more about it and do if we can do something better with it. But then you get into the other ones, millennials and Z, they are looking at saving money totally different than we ever did. A lot of
Sure.
them don't really think the future. They're not looking ahead enough into the future to see what they need. A lot of people are living still at home until they're about 27 now. So the big changes in the way they think about the future is a lot different also than each generation.
Let me ask you this, Kerri, because you're really setting the stage up for for my next question. I love that. Would you say that no matter what generation comes your way, worry and fear when it comes to money is the top priority when it comes to people.
Hmm. Yeah, during the shortest term that are out there, when they're looking at just the next year or two, they watch the market and they're seeing these downs and ups. They love it when it goes up. They're like, okay, my future is going to be great. I could do this. It looks wonderful. But then when they say, like the graph that you had showed before, the market goes down, they're like, crap, what's going
Yeah,
on? What do I do? I get a lot of calls and they're like, how long is this going to go? Should I take my money in? Should I take it out? And they start getting a little bit of fear about the future. And that's with like any of those generations that I talked about now, that they are scared for the future, especially some of them that haven't even left their house yet.
that's
And
right.
they're wondering, and that generation could live, they could live to 100. So, it gets a little scary once they see that.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let me ask you this question because you're talking about generations and ages, age ranges. If we have worry, if we have fear that has transcended itself throughout any generation, no matter what age group, because primarily people are worried about their security. People are worried about tomorrow. People are worried and fearful about making sure that they have some kind of grounded, future through their wealth and what they have. And I think what comes to me here, Kerri, and you can expand on this a little bit more because I remember our last conversation. Depending on where you are financially and whatever age group that you're in, it gives that person a signal as to what they can and can't do. And it also gives a person a signal as to what they need more of based on how they feel, right? So if we're talking about feelings and emotions, we're talking about their current level of what they consider security. To me, it creates more fear. It creates more worry based on where they are. So if I'm jumping into the marketplace and I see this market volatility, I'm going I'm probably going nuts in a lot of ways, but I want you to break down some of these generations into what you've seen because let's talk about a generation from 18 to 25 back in the day. How did they operate? How did you see it?
Back in the day of a long time ago.
A long time ago, bro. Come on, take us through
I,
the. The truth
I
is, those that were 18 are now 60, right? They're in their 60s, so they've seen a lot of changes. So a lot of people can associate with what you're talking about.
Yeah, they really can. I think a lot of them back then, the family, for one thing, the families really worked a lot together,
Yeah,
and tried to understand the future on that. And the education really wasn't there for the younger ones. However, because of the way things ran back there, people were out already, going to college the best they could, getting jobs right away, and really focusing on the future. I've heard a lot of adults that were living very small paycheck by paycheck and having to ask their parents to kind of get through. And that's one of my stories. My parents told me that they were out of the house early, went to college, but it was very, very tight back then.
sure.
Yeah. And I think today, the children they're not really realizing that because they're in their homes longer
Yes.
and they're not out there really having to be married, have a house, have all this stuff, and all of a sudden you're struggling really hard. So there's just a different view from, you know, a long time ago to now.
Yeah. It's interesting because when we talk about generations, that generation, that was simpler times because, and I say that only because each generation knew what to do. You went to school, you graduated, you either went to college, you got a job, you worked there for X amount of years, you get your pension, whatever the case may be, and you're out of there, right? So now this generation is going against the status quo and saying, no, I can be more creative, I can try more things. But it's also a whole different time. So we're seeing a different response to how, because I think this generation, everybody can argue with me or not, is that they're going against what parents are telling them as to how to do things. But that still leaves a huge wealth gap as far as how to get, so since you're using creativity, Now your parents actually can't tell you how to do that because maybe they didn't do it that way.
Yeah.
So maybe it's even a little bit more challenging for this generation to move forward.
Yeah, I believe it really is because they're totally different, and I think it's getting to the time where the parents are becoming more like them in a way,
Oh
so that
yeah,
they're kind of in a way, as it's going down, because they're understanding that's going down, they're understanding that it is different, and they're wanting to start all these new things, it's doing something different, and a lot of them are looking to the future. They want their own business. They want to have
that's right.
more. They spend a lot of money and time on self-improvement,
Yeah,
those kind of things, because they feel that that's the future and that will bring the money, which was much different than before.
that's right.
So,
So this is good because now you have me thinking about. So let's look at it from a standpoint of, and I'm going to go ahead and blow this up for those that are watching and those who are listening. We have a graph of market volatility as to a particular stock showing growth, and we see it drop, and then we see this particular stock, increase in growth and value. So when it comes to short-term thinking of these generations and how they respond to this volatility, because this is all a mental game at this point, talk to us about various age ranges and you know uh, as to how short-term thinking either does this person good or how it actually keeps people away from generating wealth in the market.
mm, yeah, and that's a good question because of the different generations. You look back at the first one. We'll start again with the baby boomers. They're in that age now, coming into retirement. They've been saving. They've been having their plans, saving, being able to do the work that they need to do to get to where they are. However, now today, with all of the prices going up, inflation, all this stuff, I have talked to many of them that are actually concerned. They're getting scared about it. I've worked with another client just recently that the money that's coming in is exactly what's going out, but the prices of everything else have been going out. And she's retired, has been retired for 20 years. She had a great pension plan, so
Yeah.
that's being able to work. But pensions stay pretty much the same amount, or 1% increase and stuff like that. So, in that generation, it's getting scary because a long time ago they thought that it would be okay with the pension, we'll be fine, this and that. But they're starting to get a little concerned now. But
Yes.
then, as the other generations go, their concern is a little bit less because they don't understand what they need to retire. They're not seeing in the future, knowing what they retire, and knowing also inflation and what the costs are going to be. So I think, like the older ones, they're getting a little more freaked out as you go, but the younger ones really aren't concerned about it yet because I don't think they understand it thoroughly. And so that, they need the education on that to help. And I think that would have a much better look on their short term, to not make decisions, daily decisions on what they want to do. They don't look into the future and they're not doing the plan right now like the retirees are doing. So I think it's a lot different with the ages on how they're looking at it short term right now. They're either really concerned if they're going to run out of money, and then the short term, they're concerned to get in the market because they think they might not have any money because they're scared of the fluctuation in the market.
Right.
So it's one extreme to the other. Yeah.
Gary, when I look at this graph and work with me real quick because you're hitting on a point because if you're in the market, because earlier we were talking about fear, we were talking about worry, we were talking about security, and you're looking at short-term thinking. When I see a drop in the marketplace, do you see more people willing to ride the wave, ride the opportunity? Because when something goes down, it doesn't really look like an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you see people short-term thinking saying, let me just get out of here? How do you see that particular response?
Yeah. Right now, I'm seeing. Um, I'm going to talk just because I'm a Gen X and we know what we're doing, right? Whatever. But we're we're kind of in the middle, and what we're seeing, yeah,
Yeah.
is we're both good and bad about this. One, because we have a long term, So, longer term than we have than the ones before. So we're able to look at it. We get a little freaked out when the market goes down because they're still looking at their future and wondering what's going to happen. So more in the 50, 55, that way it's a little, the short term gets a little crazy. And when they see the downturn, I have had calls, they see the downturn, they're like, okay, what's going on? Are we hitting another bear market? Am I going to lose money? Should I take money out? And people do get a little, scared at that time. The younger ones, they see it short term. They don't understand what the market's doing when it goes down or what it's doing when it's going up. So they're really confused and they're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have money in there at all. I don't know what's going on. The market's been going down. I'm seeing negative. What's my use of putting my money in there if I'm just going to lose it? And then again, on the top extreme, they're like, okay, I need my retirement coming in, but this market's really scaring me. I'm to the age of, I'm not even working anymore and I could be outliving the money that I have. So when I see the market go down now, it doesn't matter if the bull market's coming back up because I might not be still living at that time, in that way. So it's different for everybody, and kind of being in the middle right now is the closer you're getting to, retirement, the more scary it is. But the younger, it's like, okay, well, I think we can do it. And then you have the extremes on both sides.
Yes. That's a huge statement. I'm going to bring up long-term thinking because you have brought up Gen X, and you're absolutely right. You're right in the middle of everything, meaning you've seen the past. You come from the historical value of perseverance. I'm not saying the younger generation doesn't have perseverance. Let me make sure I clear that up to not be misquoted in this. But nonetheless, you've seen the historical value of riding the wave. That persevere, push through. It will bounce back. You've seen it. You've seen it bounce back before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have had that experience. So for you to look at a long-term thinking and actually ride a particular wave when it drops, even though you have the same fear, even though you have the same worry, just because, hey, depending on what you want to do, and if money's tight, worry does a lot to you.
Yeah.
But that perseverance could say, you know what? I have seen this before. I've seen this movie before. I'm going to ride it out. I'm gonna ride it out. Another 5 months. I think I can press through. I may have to change my buying habits for a little bit, but I'm gonna ride it out to make sure I see the best of this because I really believe in this stock or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Is that the long-term thinking that you're seeing, or people are adjusting to?
Oh, yes. Yes. The more I help people, the more I sit down and talk to them, educate them, they really are looking for the long term. I've showed them graphs before. You have a simple little graph on there, but I can show the historic numbers since the Great Depression, of how the markets run. And yes, we've had some really deep down, some good, but as you look at it the whole way, it's, grown. So I sit down and talk to my people. It's like, okay, this is how the market goes. This is normal. These things are going to happen. And see, even when the market was down, it was still able to grow. And if you take the money out on that down market, you're going to lose the ability to take that plus when it starts growing again.
That's right.
And so people can look at that and they're saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know where I learned this, and I can't be totally specific clarified, but I think I'm right. If the market was always moving up and it was a straight line, the money wouldn't have grown as fast as it did with the market fluctuation.
That's interesting.
And when I looked at that, I was like, yeah, well, that makes actually a lot of sense, because if it was just a gradual incline all the time at 10%, we would have missed out on some of those 20% years, even though we had the drop and things like this. So we need the fluctuation.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand.
Sure. All right. And you're talking about need to understand, and it brings up this question for those that, because when you say you need to understand, that takes a lot. And here's why I'm saying that is you're absolutely correct. And this brings up the how to invest into the marketplace, because it's not that people don't want to. I feel it's the amount of worry, because I tell you what, now affects the future. You can have a great vision, but if you can't see, if something happens now, today, you know how many people have derailed their life based off of now,
Mhm.
right? They have changed their whole future. Like, no, I'm not going to even touch that, and then regretted it later.
Mhm.
So when it comes to investing in the marketplace, what is the mental place that you need to be in to actually jump into it to say, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to see this vision through. What is it? What do you feel like is the strength that you need to come into this marketplace?
I believe the first thing people really need to do is sit down and really look at what their future wants to be like. And then let's look at where we are today, what your short-term thinking is, and how we can work with that. Because of course we want short-term because of things that are going on. People change, get married, you want to buy a house, buy a car, whatever. So the short-term, you need to look at it, but more in a positive way, while also looking at the long-term and explaining and understanding what's going on. If you get them more relaxed, understand it, know that we're here for you and for any questions that they may have. We just want to look and explain that. Let's look at your goals, your long-term goals that you have in the future, and how we can get to those. Now, if something happens and you pull the money out, there goes one of the investments that we planned on to grow, to keep for the long term and be able to use at retirement. But instead, you freak out, pull the money out, stick it under your bed or whatever that line is, and hope that you don't lose any money. But then you look at too, inflation, you just lost money. So when people freak out and they keep the cash that they have now, 10 years from now, they're not going to be able to buy the same thing, even though they have the cash. So you have to be able to understand that with the inflation, all the other things that affect the market, to just sit down, understand it, and hold on to it. Because, I mean, you want to have that growth. And I'm just trying to think over and over, you want to have that growth, and people are just afraid. I worked with a client just the other day. He put the money in there. He let it sit there for a week, freaked out, and took it out. And I told him, okay, just keep the cash at your house, because if you're afraid to lose money, then just leave it at your house, but worry about the rest of your money and your bills and everything in the future. But yeah, they freak out. But you just got to sit there and educate them, look at the long term, let them understand that if they still want to meet the goals that they are, I'll work with them. People will work with them, make sure we're on the right plan, ready to go. And it calms them down. It makes them feel more comfortable that there's somebody there that cares about them, is helping them watch it, and helping them understand it.
I like what you're saying. As you're talking, here's something that comes to my has been brought to my attention when you because earlier you were talking about generations. One thing about the previous generation, Gen X and Gen Z or Gen Y, baby boomers, whatnot, you think about the older generation, let's just put it in that category. They're used to working with somebody, they're used to service. There was a time frame where you went to the gas station and somebody would come out and pump your gas, clean your windows and send you on your merry way. There was a time frame when you went to the store, to J.C. Penney's or Ward's. I'm dating a lot of stuff, but nonetheless, people will come and ask for your help and see if you need help, and you would accept that service. Now, as we move into this generation, we have not only are we becoming more creative, we're coming more actually do it yourself is a creativity. So as you're working with people who are prone and want to just do it themselves and has lost trust in service, how do you teach people to get into investment and work with somebody like yourself to tap into your wisdom about the industry to make it through?
Well, for one thing, you have to be around these people that actually want to listen to you. And I know that sounds bad, and I'm trying to put it
Yeah,
in a smooth way, but a lot of them don't want to listen to your opinions or suggestions because they really believe they can do it on their own.
right.
Um, and that's not good. That hurts. It leaves them in a position that they don't know really what they're going to do or look into their future. So it's scary. But then I have also talked to some other younger ones in their 20, 21. They've already looked into it. They've sat down with somebody because they saw their long-term future. Some of them have already bought a house. Some of them have their own business, and they're only in the low 20s. And so it's very difficult to really understand how you can communicate with each, because some of them just aren't going to listen to you no matter what you say, because they just won't. But then you have the other ones that want to succeed, and they will listen to people and get the help. They'll go out and learn on their own if they need to, but if they have any questions. So it just makes a difference of how you're thinking in your head, of how you want to interact with people and listen to other people's suggestions. And back in the early generations, people actually looked into getting help and understanding it. And that's also how you can look at it. It's a little bit off the question, but that's also how you look at it, are the very low percentage of people with a lot of money are really the ones that have sat down and wanted to help.
That's right.
The ones on the bottom with the lower amount, they don't understand it. They don't want to understand it, and they think they can handle it themselves. And you can see that in the amount of money they have saved and the amount they don't. So working with the younger people, I mean, you can't talk them into it. It's just these ones you can't. If they say no, they say no. So, I want to spend more time with those that really want to learn and get their own business going at a young age, if that's what they want.
Yeah, I like that. I think last but not least, when it comes to investing and portfolio building, this also caters towards the mental approach to volatility, meaning, to me, and you can tell me if I'm completely off, but if you learn a lot about yourself when it comes to participating in the market. You get to actually introduce yourself into some of your fears. And it's one of those things that when you see something drop, you also get to see what you're missing. And so portfolio building, to me, widens the opportunity for you to constantly seek growth somewhere. That's my limited knowledge as to how I would look at portfolio building, but how do you want us to look at it?
Well, for one thing, to start with, diversity. We need to have different areas to invest in, and what you want to invest in, because of the long term, short term, anything in between, that you want to have the different options for. So when I work with people, we want to look at, again, it comes with their age, of what kind of things they should have in there. And again, this is something I talk to each client individually to really fit their need. But in general, we want to have something that fits their risk level at the time. But to have everything in one thing, it can be a real big problem, because we also want to look at taxes. And again, taxes, I don't do it. I just know we want to look at the least amount possible to pay them. And that's, I know everybody agrees with that. So, we want to have them in those kind of sections too, so that they can see the future, see what the numbers are, and feel comfortable with that, knowing when they start younger that they have that diversification in their investments and what they feel. And one of them, I don't do real estate, sell real estate or anything like that. So this is just my opinion on this. I do believe that real estate can also be another option if the people have the ability to do that, because that gives, a whole different diversity of what you have. And it's just what their best situation is, like when it comes to the taxes, when it comes to the risk level, when it comes to the long term, their risk, whatever it comes to, there needs to be a diversity in all those investments, so that you have the ability to use any of it anytime, but still have that wonderful goal that you have to retire and have that amount of money when you need it. And that just is the other thing that I found out today, that if you're looking to retire at 2050, not counting Social Security, you have to have about $4 million in your investments to be able to actually retire and do the traveling and everything you want to do that most retirees do. So that's just a little point there to help know that the younger you start, the better it will be in the long run.
That's right. Wow, that's deep. But it all makes sense, and I want to give you the opportunity to to give us your final thoughts on how to bring this home. Meaning, we talked about different generations. We talked about feelings. We talked about emotions. Obviously, we talked about the mental. We talked about portfolio building. We talked about how to invest. What is the next step for somebody at this stage?
To bring it all down together, I really believe that people need to sit down for a little while, think about what they want in their life, and look at the long term on this. I know that they sit down and they want this. I do it. I want so much stuff. But what I really want people to understand is that they're able to get to the goals they're going after. They're able to do things that they want in the future as long as they have their mindset on what they want, how to get there, and continue in the long run to stay with it. Let's look at the fear a little bit different. There are positive ways to look at the fear and not the negative. But just to keep that in mind about how you want to grow your life, what you want out of your life, what you want your future to look like, and let's stick to it. Work together, help each other, and kind of just be excited for stuff, that the market's not going to totally crash and everybody's going to lose all their money. So that's my last little section of that.
I love it, Kerri. I love it. And the people love what you just said. And that's very motivating and very helpful to get people off to a good start. So I want to thank you for taking your time to help approach this, because we are right in the time of a lot of change and people are very nervous right now. And this is exactly what they need to hear. So thank you so much. I know you have a lot of work to do. So we'll see you next month with a different topic that we need to address.
All right. That sounds marvelous.
Sounds good, Kerri. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All righty. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. I want to thank everybody for taking your time to listen to Kerri and listen to her thoughts and point of view. When it comes to this, one of the things that popped out to me as Kerri ended the program here is the word growth. When you go through growth, you need to go through change. And part of this is change. And the diversity that comes with change and growth is needed, is necessary. That's one thing about doing this, and the difference between doing yourself. Doing yourself, you go full throttle, not understanding, then you get frustrated, then you never want to participate. But when you do it, when you have somebody that has the knowledge, the wisdom, the know-how, she's going to coach you through those steps. She's going to see the changes that you're looking at. She's going to develop a portfolio that's going to help you execute your vision. And so growth, although we all want it fast, we want it immediate, the best growth is a growth that grows over a long term, that is sustainable. And diversification within your portfolio is a sustainability that she's introducing to us. That's why you want to reach out to professionals that know the marketplace and can actually lead you to the direction of, just because that one egg is not growing doesn't mean another egg is not. So look at that and look at it from that perspective. And again, reach out to people like Kerri to actually help you navigate that and see yourself to the next level. So I want to thank everybody again for taking your time. But Kerri and I, we actually have to get back to work. So we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.